organizat în kickboxing. Doamnelor și domnilor, se luptă pentru Storm. Let's give it up din Luton, United Kingdom, for Andrew Tate!
He is the one that can see John Cena, hailing from Long Beach, California, introducing Chase DeMoor!
Look, you need to understand something before we dive into this whole thing. Andrew Tate stepping into the ring with Chase DeMoor isn't your typical influencer boxing spectacle. This one hits different, way different. There's a weight to it that most Misfits fights just don't carry, and that's because Tate doesn't do anything quietly, never has. When he enters a space, everything amplifies, the conversations get more intense, people pick sides immediately. You're either all in or you want nothing to do with it. That energy completely transforms how a fight gets viewed before anyone even throws a punch. Now think about this. The man hasn't stepped into professional competition for 5 years. He's coming back to boxing, not kickboxing, and he's doing it against the current Misfits heavyweight champion. Someone younger, bigger, hungrier, and desperate to prove this is his time. That's what makes this whole situation so loaded. This isn't just about who wins. This is about proving something, about getting recognized, about whether all that experience can still handle pure chaos when the pressure is turned up to maximum. Here's what makes it really interesting though. Both guys actually have legitimate ways to win this thing. So let's rewind, because this fight really started the second it got announced. When Misfits dropped the news that Tate was returning, the internet basically exploded. Half the people called it a money grab. The other half immediately went hunting for old footage, old interviews, anything to figure out the answer to one question: is this guy actually still dangerous? Or has his reputation gotten bigger than his actual skills? That matters, because Tate isn't walking in here as some comeback underdog story. He's carrying expectations. There are people waiting to dissect every single mistake, ready to start screaming about how he got exposed the moment he looks even slightly uncomfortable. That kind of heat breaks most fighters before they even get their gloves on. But here's the thing about Tate, he's built his whole identity around handling pressure, whether you see it as confidence or just showmanship. The man talks like someone who expects confrontation, who thrives when things get chaotic. That doesn't mean he's gonna win, but it definitely changes how he's gonna behave when things get rough. Now flip that, and look at Chase DeMoor. This guy isn't just defending a championship, he's defending his entire reputation. For him, this fight represents everything. Proof that he belongs here, that he's not just some big guy who happened to stumble into boxing through social media. Beating Andrew Tate would launch his name way beyond the Misfits bubble overnight. It would completely change how people talk about him. That's incredibly dangerous motivation, because when fighters want something too badly, they rush things. They try to force moments instead of letting the fight come to them. And boxing destroys impatience. The whole buildup has just made this tension worse. Tate keeps calling it his show, acting like Chase barely matters, treating the belt like it's almost an afterthought compared to the statement he wants to make. That kind of talk either gets in your opponent's head or it fires them up completely. From everything we've seen, Chase seems fired up. He's been talking back on social media, promising to shock everybody, really embracing this role as the hungry champion. But confidence is tricky. There's barely any space between being confident and being too emotionally invested. The more personal this gets, the harder it becomes to stay cool when your game plan starts falling apart. That's why the opening minutes are going to tell us everything. I don't think Tate comes out swinging for the fences. That's not his style. He's always been more of a chess player than a brawler. Someone who wants to read his opponent before fully committing. So expect that first round to feel tense and uncomfortable. For both guys, Tate will probably control the center, keep his guard up, move with purpose. He'll throw jabs to measure distance, not necessarily to hurt. He'll throw feints to see how Chase reacts. Does he bite on fakes? Does he freeze up? Does he overreact? Chase is probably gonna come forward with intent. Not wild aggression, but real pressure. He wants Tate to feel that size advantage. He wants to back him up, show everyone including the judges that this is his ring now. And this is where the psychology gets really interesting. If Chase feels like he's controlling things early, his confidence builds. If Tate stays calm, slips shots, looks comfortable, then Chase starts questioning what he's doing. These tiny mental shifts happen way before any real damage gets done, but they determine how everything else plays out. I expect to see Chase throwing big power shots that don't quite connect early on, heavy hooks, big right hands. The kind of punches that look scary but miss by inches. And every miss costs energy. Every miss builds frustration. Meanwhile, Tate will probably be really economical. Short movements, no wasted motion. He's not trying to impress anyone in the first few minutes. He's trying to survive, watch, and slowly start taking control. By the second round, that difference becomes really obvious. Chase might start pressing harder, trying to force exchanges. This is natural human behavior. When fighters don't get immediate results, they escalate, they swing harder, they commit more, and when you commit, you create openings. This is where all of Tate's experience becomes a real weapon. He doesn't need to win every exchange, he just needs to disrupt Chase's rhythm. A clean jab here, a quick counter there, just enough to land something that reminds Chase he's being watched, timed, and punished for mistakes. Those moments are way more important than people realize. Once a fighter starts second-guessing themselves even a little bit, their aggression loses its edge. They hesitate, they slow down, they lose that initial fire, and conditioning becomes a factor too. Chase carries serious muscle mass that's explosive, but it drains fast when you're under constant pressure. If he's throwing power shots and coming up empty, his gas tank becomes a real question. Tate has spent years learning how to pace himself, save energy, manage his output. If this fight reaches the middle rounds, watch the body language closely. Chase might still be moving forward, but with less spring in his step, less pop on his punches. Tate might start stepping forward more confidently, not because he's hunting for a finish, but because he can sense the control shifting. This is often where fights turn, and it's not always dramatic. No big moment, just a gradual shift where one guy looks more comfortable and the other looks more desperate. Desperation leads to bigger swings, wilder punches, holes in defense. If Tate is gonna find his success, it'll be right here. Short, sharp counters when Chase overcommits, clean shots thrown in the gaps between Chase's attacks. Nothing flashy, just efficient. And if Chase gets tagged cleanly, even once, everything changes. Doesn't even need to drop him. A clean shot that snaps his head back, makes his legs go stiff for half a second. That's enough to plant doubt. And doubt is absolutely toxic in boxing. Makes fighters hesitate, makes them abandon their game plan, makes them fight with emotion instead of intelligence. From there, this could go several ways. If Chase manages to stay composed, adjust his pressure, avoid overcommitting, he could turn this into a messy physical battle, make Tate uncomfortable, force clinches, turn it into a test of who can handle more punishment. That's his clearest path to victory. But if Chase keeps pressing recklessly, keeps throwing power shots without proper setup, keeps letting frustration drive his decisions, then the door opens for a late stoppage. Not because Tate is actively hunting for a knockout, but because exhaustion creates opportunities. Hands start dropping, footwork gets sloppy, reactions slow down. That's when clean shots start finding their target more often. If there is a knockout here, I don't think it'll be wild. I don't think we'll see a brawl. I think it'll be something controlled, a perfectly timed counter, a short combination that catches Chase stepping in. Something that looks almost simple but only works because one fighter stayed patient while the other lost composure. Of course, none of this is guaranteed. Heavyweights don't need many mistakes to flip everything instantly. One clean shot early could completely rewrite the script. That's the real risk Tate is taking by returning this way. No safety net, no tune-up fight, no room for error. And that's exactly what makes this compelling. It's not just about technique, it's about who handles pressure better, who adjusts faster, who stays composed when their original plan stops working. The spectacle around this will be absolutely massive. Social media will lose its mind in real time. Clips will go viral instantly. Every single round will get debated to death. Every facial expression, every exchange, every bit of body language will get analyzed forever. And here's the last thing I want to leave you with. However this ends, it's going to completely change the direction of Misfits boxing, because Tate versus Chase isn't just a fight, it's a test. Misfits is putting all their biggest storylines on the line at once to see what survives. If Tate comes back looking sharp, composed, dangerous. Everything opens up. Every big name suddenly wants that spotlight. Callouts get more intense. Stakes get higher. The whole conversation shifts from should he even be here to who's got the guts to face him next. That transforms the entire landscape overnight. But if Chase shows he can handle the pressure, absorb all the hype, and impose himself against someone with way more experience, that's a completely different kind of statement. That's the kind of victory that turns a belt into real legitimacy. It tells everyone watching that this division isn't built just on names, but on fighters who can rise up when the moment demands everything. That's what makes this fascinating. It's not just about landing punches, it's about momentum, about perception, about what comes next. Because after that final bell, one man walks away with more than just a win or loss. He walks away with leverage. Leverage in negotiations, leverage in callouts, leverage in how the entire fight world discusses him going forward. So when you watch this, don't just look for the knockout, watch the reactions, watch the body language, watch who looks comfortable and who looks overwhelmed, watch who adapts and who tries to force things. Those details will tell you more than any scorecard ever could. This is one of those fights where what happens afterward might matter just as much as the actual action. The interviews, the callouts, the social media explosion, the debates that go on for weeks. That's why this fight matters. Not because it's perfect or pure, but because it's raw, unpredictable, and absolutely loaded with consequences.